Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and I'm joined as always by Leprechaun Toth and Tim.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll wear that badge proudly. I should double check to see if Leprechaun 2 has a Facebook page. If not, maybe I should start one. I can be the admin.
You go, girl.
I've always wanted to be an admin. It sounds so fun.
Only me say it that way. If you say administrator, all of a sudden it sounds like the most boring thing in the world.
Yeah, that's not as good.
Yeah. So, yeah, we talk about horror movies on this show, and on this episode, we are going to talk about House of Wax, the original House of Wax from 1953, starring Vincent Price, and this is actually the winner of a Patreon vote every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. We put up 4 films and a theme of sorts, and our patrons will vote as to which one they want us to do in the following month. So House of Wax was a winner. This was the second of our alphabet votes, as in this was a movie beginning with E, F, G, and H, and the H movie won, House of Wax with Vincent Price.
What were the, do you remember what the other choices were?
G was Ghost Ship, F was The Faculty, and E was... I want to say...
Entity? Exorcist?
I want to say Eden Lake, but I could be wrong.
Eden Lake?
It's been a while.
Wow, this went out over Ghost Ship. Huh. Interesting.
A fact that I am very glad for, thank you very much. Very, very, very glad for. So...
Hey, I'm about to go on a ship soon, so I gotta be on the lookout for ghosts.
Yeah, well, yeah. You actually going on a cruise? You cruising around for a bit?
I will be, yeah.
Exciting.
Going to gonna visit the beautiful tropical state of Alaska.
Hope you pat the parka.
It sounds like I don't know, like an old children's like rhyme or something, like Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Peter packed a parka.
Oh yeah, thank you. Peter picked a pickled pepper paper, something. I don't know. I don't remember children's rhymes. I'm a 30-year-old man, Tim. I don't remember these things.
Okay.
And you ought to know because you're even older than I am.
Well, it seems like it's still about your reading level.
Tim's got jokes.
Is that why you do a comic book podcast? Because it's just easier to look at the pictures.
Oh, Tim's a nightmare. Okay, so this we will start spoiler free on House of Wax, and we'll give you a warning in the middle before we go into spoilers. I believe this is the second Vincent Price film we've done.
We did House of Usher.
Yeah, Follow the House of Usher. We did that one. That was a vote. I was a vote winner as well, actually. But I think that was a Vincent Price's vote. I think that was like 4 Vincent Price movies.
Oh, we get some Price heads as our Patreons.
Yeah, some Price heads. And they spared no expense in being a patron to then vote for their favourite Vincent Price movie. It's all about money. It's all about money. So House of Wax, I've never seen the remake. Have you seen the Paris Hilton remake?
Oh yeah.
Now I don't want any spoilers because obviously we'll do it someday, I'm sure, but yeah. I do have to ask a question. Having just seen maybe the poster and maybe some of the trailer or whatever, do the wax figures come to life and try and kill them? Is that the premise of that movie?
No. It's
okay.
It has been quite a while since I've seen it. So just going off memory, 2 things I'll say is very little of it resembles this original movie. Surprise. And then I'll be a little vague because I'm sure we will do. Yeah, we'll do it. The movie, but let's just say, surprise, my opinion about it might not be the opinion most people feel about the movie.
Oh God. Oh, that worries me. That worries me greatly. I don't even know what to say to that. So basically what I'm saying is, though, because I expected that to be the premise of the remake, I expected the original to have that premise as well. This is not the first time I've seen it. I saw this the first time maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
I think it's about the same with me. I'm pretty sure I've seen this at some point before.
Yeah,
probably to gear myself up for the original, to be honest, or the remake. I mean,
so it's Vincent Price, and the movie's like premise was something that was completely different from what I was expecting. Like I said, I was kind of expecting wax figures coming to life and like killing people.
Yeah, if you want that, then you probably should watch Waxworks.
Okay. I'm not disappointed that that's not what the movie was.
And I could be wrong, but I do think that is somewhat what happens in Waxwork. It's been a while since I've seen that as well. I think I'm thinking of the right movie with starring the kid from Gremlins.
Which kid from Gremlins?
The main kid, Billy.
Billy, okay, right. Not Corey Feldman, just to make sure we're on the one. Yeah, well, he's Zach in that movie. Oh, his real name's Zach as well, isn't it? Was that a thing?
Yeah. Well, isn't his name Billy in the movie?
Oh, you're right. His name's Zach in real life. His name in the movie's Billy. Look, this is the third review we've recorded back to back, okay, in a day, because Tim's about to go on his stupid honeymoon, so we had to crunch like 3 episodes in one day. My mind's not where it ought to be. All right.
Probably should have done this one before the other movie. I feel like you would have been less loopy after that last recording.
So yeah.
Have you ever been to a wax museum though? I think that's the big question.
I have not. No.
Okay. When I moved out to Hollywood, I did go to Madame Tussauds, which is I don't know. It's weird.
It seemed creepy to me.
It is like a little creepy because like they do look very realistic and like if you kind of look at the corner of your eye or from a distance, like it can look like a real person. But then there's like this weird kind of I guess uncanny valley or something when you kind of get up close to them where you just like no, it's not real. And then it also is just weird to see like like people going crazy over like I don't know, like Miley Cyrus or something like wax figure. All right, there's one thing that I do think is like I think Madame Tussauds is kind of stupid, but like I do think it would be cool to go to like a wax museum of like horror stuff. Like if there's one that was just like all like Frankensteins and Draculas and stuff, like I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I do like that this movie was what, from 1953 was when it was made?
1953, yes.
Yeah, but do we know when it's supposed to take place?
Oh, it's earlier than that. It's like the 10s or 20s or something like that. Because they mentioned that cars are just starting to be a thing. There's like a line of dialogue that mentions that.
Yeah, and then because I mean I didn't really know this, but like they do treat like wax museums like they're like one of the biggest forms of entertainment back then, which I didn't know if that was a real thing. Like were they ever really that popular? I don't know. Seems like a very niche kind of thing, but I don't know. I guess back in the day when you literally had nothing else. Well,
yeah, I feel like it makes more sense that it was popular, before everyone had TVs. Like there was something to go see. I guess that makes sense, and yeah, so the movie starts. Vincent Price, his investor wants to pull out because he's got something else he wants to invest his money in. But he has this new investor who comes by, and he's like, "Oh, I'm really impressed with your Madame Tussauds, and I'm really impressed with your Lincoln and your Joan of Arc and whoever else that he's made." And Vincent Price is determined that he doesn't want to do like a House of Horrors. He wants to do just real figures from history. He doesn't want to do things that are just for cheap shock value.
He's a man of integrity. I could kind of see a lot of myself in him, to be honest. Like a lot of time, you always want to do like these cheap, schlocky movies, and I'm like, Pete, no, we gotta talk about real cinema here. We gotta do like real artsy movies, but whatever. I don't know. I can relate to him, is what I'm saying.
I don't see any Vincent Price in you, Tim. Just for the record. Clint Howard, maybe.
Oh, okay.
But not Vincent Price.
I'll take it. I said it last episode. I'll say it again. We're pro Clint on this podcast.
We are pro Clint, yes. No, I like, I think it's interesting that he's actually very likable. I feel like Vincent Price characters are usually very kind of like shades of grey, and he may be really villainous, right? Or just outright villainous from the start. This character at the start of the movie is actually very sympathetic and likable, and it's very much like a
Garfield.
It's like a what?
Look, Garfield is another sympathetic and likable character.
That's very specific, but sure, we'll go with Garfield. I was going to compare it to an 80s slasher movie. Not a specific one, just in general. Like, they do this scene at the start which creates the villain. You know, like, this is why the kid from high school wants revenge kind of thing. It's very much that, where the investor is like, hey, there's a lot of insurance tied up in this place. We could burn this place down, and we'll split the money, 12 and a half grand each.
What's funny about this is like how casually he does it. Because he's trying to get bought out by this other person, and the other person like just doesn't do it. So Vincent Price is like, oh, I'm really sorry. He's like, oh, it's okay. I have a backup plan.
More than that, though, it's not even because the other guy is not just not wanting to do it. The guy does want to do it. He's leaving on a trip for like 3 months. He's like, yeah, but when I get back in 3 months, we can talk about it. And Vincent Price is quite happy with that. He's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And he turns around to the investor and he's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's going to take 3 months, but when that time comes, we'll buy you out, and off we go.
And then, the guy's just like, nah, that's all right. He's like, I just have another idea. We'll just burn the place down. And then he like starts like lighting the place on fire, just like very like, okay, we're doing this now. He just starts lighting fire, and Vincent Price has to fight him. There's a bit of a scuffle, and Vincent Price gets knocked out, and then the place is burning. And that's kind of your prologue. That's kind of what sets up the plot of the movie. And one thing I did think was cool is just like, one of the appeal of like, watching movies like this is just being like, oh, they really set lit a set on fire. Like back, like you just feel like the flames are real, like as opposed to, now just be like all like the CGI little fire or something. Yeah, no, I like that as well. I was thinking about that actually, is that they had to actually get fire experts in, light certain areas on fire that's controlled, and have Vincent, because Vincent Price is quite close to the fire at one point, and I'm like, yeah. And I get that obviously it's more dangerous, but like they still were able to do it safely for decades and decades before CG took over and everything had to be CG now. Yeah. So I appreciate that. So we get introduced to our real main character of the film, which is Sue Allen. Who we meet actually because she's the roommate of what's the other one's name? Was it Kathy? I want to say Cody.
Cody was from Leprechaun 2. You madman. You madman. Also, I want to point out that between recordings, right? Like Tara messaged me about something she was doing, right? So for our next show, and I messaged back said, "Oh, we just did Leprechaun 2." Right, and she's
jealous.
She responded with, "Is that the one with the sneezing?" And I'm like, "Holy shit! How do you know what Leprechaun? No. We just recorded Leprechaun 2. That's what happened."
I don't know Tara very well yet, but I do like the idea that you basically just got like saddled with another version of me.
It's basically just you without the beard. Let's be honest. So I love. We spent over an hour talking about Leprechaun 2, and I love that it's somehow come back. It's come back into this review, even though House of Wax is a perfectly fine, so basically the premise here is we introduced to Kathy, who's dating the investor, and she's all happy because he's going to take her away because the insurance money for the fire for the wax museum is finally coming in. But I missed
her laugh.
I know her laugh is something else. And so he goes home that night, and there's a masked man, almost a very sort of like Phantom of the Opera-esque sort of character. He's not masked. He's just got like a really like disfigured face, but he's got the hat on, the cloak. It's very like Phantom of the Opera, and he like hangs him down the elevator shaft, and that's kind of our big setup. And the reason why I'm building up to this, because basically we've got this masked man going around killing people now, starting with this investor dude. But I wanted to bring this up because it leads us to how we meet Sue Allen, because that's Kathy's roommate. And Kathy, it jumps ahead a little bit of time, and Kathy's with Sue Allen, and Sue Allen's helping her get dressed, and Sue Allen's down on her luck, and she's not. making a lot of money. She's behind on the rent, and Kathy's helping her out and covering for her, and she's helping her. And Kathy's, I'm going on a date tonight with this new guy, and it's like, hey, that guy who was murdered, you were dating that guy, right? And he's like, yeah, I was dating him. And I wanted to bring up this line of dialogue because it really stuck with me. So they start talking about this Matty, this guy the investor who was hung, and they think hung himself, but it was actually this killer. She goes, yeah, he was going to take me on a trip, and we were really getting serious. We were going to get married, but then he hung himself. Ha 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 ha. She laughs after said, but then he hung himself. She's not devastated. She's not like confused or anything. She's just laughing and goes, he was such a card. Oh yeah, that wacky Matty, he just killed himself. What a wacky man. That was a weird line of dialogue. That was really weird.
Things were different back then.
Things were different back then. So that's basically the premise, is that there's someone going around killing people and stealing the dead bodies, and then there's also this new wax museum. It's revealed that Vincent Price did not die. He is still around. And so that's the gist of it. So he's opening a new wax museum, and the new investor that he brings back in then funds this new museum, and it does quite well. It's very popular. So Tim, before we go any further, did you enjoy House of Wax, the original?
Yeah, I do actually. Sometimes it's a little bit of a you're not sure what you're gonna get, like with these older movies, like, because sometimes you get something that's like, it was made so long ago, but it's still like utterly captivating, like Dracula or something like. But then other times you get a movie that's just like, oh man, this is so old and boring and stuff. So, but no, this one I actually thought was pretty good. Like, there's definitely some old timey stuff, that I can do without. Like, I don't really need like extended, scenes of like can dances and stuff. But overall, I think it was interesting enough, and like I like the story, and Vincent Price, of course, is always great.
Yeah, he's great.
So it's not like it's not like my favorite classic horror movie or whatever, but I do think it's a pretty good one.
I like it a lot too. I think I love Vincent Price, obviously. I love everything with like the killer and his hat, like stalking people and chasing like Sue Allen around, and like it feels very old school, like sinister, dastardly. There's a killer on the loose, so it's a little bit.
You're not talking about the movie Sinister, but like even older than that.
Yes.
Like, okay.
Yes. The movie Sinister is garbage, and I will never compare anything good to it ever in my life.
Ouch.
And then Sinister 2 is even worse. Also, did you recognize Charles Bronson in this? I'm just noticing his name in the credits.
Oh no, I didn't.
He's Igor. He's his like servant.
The
dude.
Assistant
Yeah.
guy?
That's a young Charles Bronson.
The one that's
deaf.
that can't speak.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's deaf and mute. Yeah.
I did not know that.
I know. I didn't recognize him either.
I did not know that.
Look at that. You learn something. Every day. So yeah, I like it. I like Vincent Price a lot. I like the killer. I think it's a very simple story. It really feels like an old-timey movie. It's only 90 minutes long. Joe, I actually forgot that this was originally released in 3D until the ping pong paddle scene. And this guy outside the waxwork museum is basically he's basically just out there to kind of like hustle and get people to go inside and promote. And he's got this like ping pong bat that he's hitting, and he starts hitting it towards the camera at one point. I'm like, oh yeah, this was 3D. That's right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, my Blu-ray has like the 3D version in proper like 3D. I mean like the new technology of 3D. They converted it to the new version. I don't have a 3D TV though, so I can't watch it that way. But it has it as a bonus. The only 3D movies I have is when they insisted on not having a separate 2D release. They just had them together. So that's why I have one or two. That and Dread.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are the two movies that I have technically in 3D.
Yeah, I have a few like that. But it's always cool. It's always, I can't imagine ever really having a 3D TV, but it's always nice to have the option. I didn't realize it was in 3D. I guess that kind of explains the can dancing then, though.
Yeah, it only explains like because I don't think most of the movie, because it's not like Friday the 13th Part 3 where like almost every scene has like one moment where something's coming towards the camera. This didn't really have that. This had, there is a few scenes, although once I noticed the ping pong thing, I did actually notice that whenever like a woman fainted in the crowd, it was always towards the camera, and I wonder if that was also meant to be like, oh, she's falling towards you. Ah, there's a woman in a big fluffy dress coming at me. No.
Oh no, it's scary.
It's like the day after tomorrow.
And I like I think one of the things that I always really like about seeing these old movies is like the sets and stuff. Like they always have so much atmosphere, and in this I do like the whole wax work is like a creepy place. Like it's a lot of the dioramas and stuff, like you just get like that wax doll with vacant eyes just looking at you. It just makes for like kind of a creepy little set dressing. Actually,
one of the first things that I thought were really creepy in this movie is in the opening prologue scene when the place is burning down, all the waxed figures start melting, and it's actually really creepy. Well, it's like, oh, that was I mean,
because they're so like realistic looking, and like there are even parts where like I kind of wondered like, oh, did they just get a person to stand really still for that shot? Or?
Yeah, I mean they're all a bit creepy because they're so close to lifelike, but they're not quite there, so they've got that uncanny valley kind of thing going for them. But once they started melting, though, it was actually really, really disturbing looking. And a movie from the 50s, which you don't expect movies from the 50s to be that disturbing by today's standards, but this is a creepy moment, so credit.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's ever done this, but someone should do like I don't know if you'd want to do like a short or make a comic book, but someone should do like the Uncanny Valley X-Men, where it's just like all these X characters, but they just look like slightly off.
Yeah, book it, Tim. $1 million idea.
Oh, okay.
$1 million idea. So the movie goes from there, and it becomes a bit of a the police are investigating the murders, and once Sue Allen's like attacked because she finds her roommate being killed and is then chased by the killer. And there's actually, I mean, we'll save it for spoilers, but there's a really nice moment at the end of the movie that I really love. Because I kind of guessed something, but I had it the wrong way around, which was really neat. So more than that in a little bit, but
I say like the whole final act is pretty cool.
Yeah, because at that point we're in the new wax museum and it's just dark, and they do the classic thing where like the henchman is like pretending to be one of the wax figures for a bit. Like he's like you just see his eyes start moving when with all the wax heads are with him. It's really good, and they keep teasing things that they've got a guillotine there. They've got various because hell, even the first shot you get in the movie is the shadow of one of the wax figures. It's just the woman holding the knife, and it starts off in that shot and then like sort of pulls back, and then we see the figures, and I like that. The movie's always intentionally trying to feel like a horror movie, even when it's not necessarily doing the most horror movie things in the scene.
And it's like he's doing like the one thing now that he swore he would never do, where he's giving into the the gruesome mentality where people are like, oh yeah, like you should do more like murdery stuff, and like which is kind of funny. Like even back then people like were obsessed with true crime, like they want to see people in the guillotine or the first person to die from the electric chair or whatever, which obviously at the beginning of the movie he's like, no, like I don't do that grotesque stuff, I'm more about the beauty and the art of it. And now once the tragedy happens and he has this new thing, it's like it's like, oh no, now we're all going gruesome and dark with it.
I mean, surprise, he came back. He survived that ordeal being a little bit psychotic. What a shock! What a shock that is. And I think we'll give the spoiler warning. I think here, I think we need to get into spoilers now at this point. So, full spoilers for the movie. So he is the killer, right? Like he is the killer. He's in a wheelchair when we meet him like properly. But my suspicion is that he is intentionally applying wax to his face to look disfigured so that no one can recognize him. And obviously he is faking being in a wheelchair. We see him stand up later in the movie when he eventually captures Sue Allen, because he's going to wax her alive, because we see the big wax vat and how it's applied and all that. Like sets all this up in the middle of the movie. Which, by the way, can I just mention, this is like the shortest movie I've ever seen that's had an intermission.
Yeah, it's true.
So weird. So
also
weird.
Seems like a weird thing that's like, do we need to keep this in? Like at this point when we're watching it on like Blu-ray and stuff.
Well, to be fair, the Blu-ray doesn't actually have an intermission per se. The screen comes up saying intermission, it just fades immediately back in. So they've cut out the time for it, but that's about it. I think, but no, I like the bit at the end where he gets his face smashed off. It turns out that he's made a wax slick mask for himself that's his face, but it's like, and it cuts just nicely so that you can't see it long enough to see the stupid face on its own, because it cuts to her smashing it and his face just shatters and it's the disfigured face underneath. It's such a really good moment. I really liked it.
Yeah, no, it's like really cool visual.
Yeah, so no, that was really neat. I liked that a lot. And the actual the chase with Sue Allen was fun, and it goes onto the cobbled street because it's the old, and it's because it's New York, but it's like 1905 New York or whatever year it is.
Yeah.
So they're chasing each other around and all the rest of it. And again, it's like he's sort of like there's a lot of like the killer kind of hunched over and looking over, like he's sneaking about. It's very good. And she even actually gets the idea at one point to take off her shoes because it's making too much noise in the cobbled street. She's like, no, I need to be stealthy.
Yeah, she's a pretty cool character. Like, she's actually pretty smart, which I don't know. I feel like women probably weren't always
smart. How dare you?
No. Like when they were doing. Like, when they're portrayed in like, movies at this time, a lot of times, they have like, the stereotypes and stick to, but she's like a pretty smart, like capable person. Like she's the one that's figuring out what's going on.
There's definitely some like that in the movie, like like when they first opened the New Wax Museum in the second half, and there's these three women who go in together, and like every time they're talking about one of the displays, like, oh, this is the first electric chair death, or this is this person who got killed or their head cut off. Like every single time, all three of them are like, oh, I'm all flustered. Yeah. Oh, like they get to the point where they're ready to faint by the end of it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, all right. Women don't faint this much for no reason. Yeah. This is nonsense. And they never did. Right? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they never did. But Sue Allen notices that she's the Joan of Arc looks a lot like Kathy, her roommate. And we get a scene where we see Kathy be kidnapped from the morgue, where Vincent Price is, we don't know it's Vincent Price at that point, but the killer gets up in the morgue, which, by the way, as they're leaving the morgue, there's actually some really sexist dialogue from the two guys who are putting the bodies away, because they say something like, because one of the bodies like sits up and he's like, oh, don't worry, that's just the embalming fluid, it makes them sit up sometimes. Like, sit up? I've heard of arms flinching a bit, not like outright sitting up like Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? But they say something like, even in death he can't shut them up or something. He says some of that as he walks out. It's like, yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah, I wish I would have like written down some of the lines, because it's not like throughout the whole movie, but every now and again you do get like one of those like old timey like lines, usually from like a guy character, where you're like, where it's just like so like outdated and dumb, but it's it is like kind of like part of the charm of watching these like old movies. Obviously, you don't take it seriously or anything nowadays, but
but yeah,
there's like some funny stuff like that.
Yeah, so he lowers the body out the window, and he's got his henchman there to like take it. It's kind of funny because they basically question one of the henchmen who can speak in the police station, and he eventually just kind of gives up and tells him everything, which is what leads the police to like the rescue at the end. And they just narrowly get Sue Allen away from the wax, because it actually pours where she was like just seconds later. So they did a classic climax kind of thing.
And it's just one of these things where like everything looks really cool, like it's this kind of giant crazy contraption with like this bubbling pink goo, and like everything's steaming and boiling, and then once it kind of starts going awry, like all these beakers and stuff are popping, and it just looks really cool.
It's proper mad scientist. Right? It's proper. This is a mad scientist movie. Is essentially what it is. I mean, he's not doing science per se, but it's exactly what it feels like, though. He's got henchmen. He's even called his henchman Igor. Like, it's a mad science movie. And that's okay. Yeah, no, I like House of Wax a lot actually. I think it's got a nice tone. The characters are likable enough to watch. I'd say it maybe slows down a little bit in the middle of the second half, and when I say the second half, I mean after the intermission. Like, there's a little bit where Sue Allen's just dating her friend, and she's like she can't shake off the idea that she saw Kathy at the wax place, and they try to convince her that it's not true. It's like he based the likeness on her from the newspaper, and that's what he does now. But it's like there's a little bit slow down there, but it's not a long time because the movie's only 90 minutes, so it typically keeps up a nice pace, and the actors are all really likable. It's like pulpy horror. That's kind of what I'd call it. When you've got the killer in the hat sneaking about, it's like pulpy horror, and I have fun with that. So I think it's definitely a good watch. I guess if I have like one complaint, it's similar to what you're saying, is maybe there are some parts that slowed down a bit. Because I feel like an older movie like this, it's not super long, but you probably could have gotten away with it being maybe like 85 minutes or so. But I mean, like you said, though, it's never like excruciatingly boring or something where you're like, oh, stop it. Like, it's still pretty good. So no, like I say, I really like some of the effects and some of the practical effects. I really like Vincent Price's space getting smashed off, all the wax figures melting at the start. I liked all that stuff. It does a good job of feeling like sinister, but not like, obviously it's a movie from the 50s, so it's not actually that extreme in terms of visuals, because it was just before they started doing things like that. But it never feels like it's hindered because of it, though.
Yeah, like you still see him like hanging a person or something, which is like still kind of crazy.
Honestly, for the time period, that hanging scene is pretty dark. It's pretty,
which is why it was so funny when the girlfriend laughs. Yeah,
when the girlfriend just laughs it off as if, oh, that crazy cook, him hanging himself like that. What a silly sausage.
It is also kind of funny, like at the end too, like after the final scene and they're back at the police station and they are like cracking jokes again. Like one of the guys that was like he was stuck in the guillotine and kind of just escaped before it almost chopped his head off, and then like someone makes a joke like, oh, I bet you'll never like think of shaving like the same way again or something like that. And it's like
because you shave with a giant guillotine blade.
But they're making a couple of jokes like that. And actually there was like something that I thought was really weird that stood out, where like one of the characters was like, oh, like Sue Allen or whatever is like, oh, like thanks for giving me your coat or whatever, and like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't want you to catch a cold. And then like one of the other police in the back, they sneeze, but it is like such a like, stop everything, focus on this guy, I'm gonna do like a powerful sneeze, like it's like so loud and angry. It just like feels really weird and out of place.
I think what's weird to me about that little conversation at the end is like, he puts his coat over because she's basically naked, right? And when she's getting ready to be waxed, if you want to call it that, not in the traditional sense of the word. And then Vincent Price's messed up world, she's basically naked. So he takes his coat off and puts it over to cover a decency, right? And nothing needs to be said about it. It's obvious why he does it. It's obvious, and she thanks him for it. I'm like, okay, I don't feel like you need to, but okay, you want to thank him for covering you up, that's fine. But they end up having like this extended conversation about it, like, well, I didn't want you to catch a cold, wink wink. It's like, oh yeah, so it's awfully chilly. Like, why are we talking about this so much? It's obvious why he did that. It was a nice thing to do, but it was obvious why he did it. There's no debate to be had. It was weird. Again, sometimes dialogue in the old movies can be a little wacky, but
Yeah. I do think it is kind of funny too, like sometimes when you watch stuff like this that you think is like outdated or whatever, but you still see them doing like the same tropes that you see in modern movies. Like, when they were cracking these jokes at the end, I was like, oh yeah, this does feel like a modern like action movie or horror movie or something, when you go through like this big thing, and then afterwards you have to have like the characters commented on and make like some joke instead of trying to process their trauma.
Yeah, they have to make it lighthearted. Yeah, it just treat it like, oh, everything's back to normal. Well, I mean, hell, the movie started with the girlfriend going, ha 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 ha, he hung himself. Yeah. So I mean, I guess with that logic, this is like a subdued ending compared to that.
True.
I also like. I thought they were setting something up with the fact that she was having trouble paying her rent because her landlady was like demanding her money, and like, oh, if you want to stay here, you're going to get that money from your roommate, or you're getting kicked out. It never comes back up again because she goes to live with like her friends, with a guy who might be a love interest, although he might also be married and they're just friends. I wasn't really sure.
Yeah, it's a little hard.
What this relationship was exactly, but like. She goes and lives with them, and it's just never an issue after that. And I'm like, I thought they were going to make that like a recurring thing, that she was trying to get a job, and that's where she was going to end up somewhere else, or she'd meet someone else some other way, or it never really comes up again. So that was like a weird thing they didn't really have to introduce. It was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess to make you care about the roommate, so that we cared when she died, because after her flipping dismissal of the suicide, it was hard to give too much of a shit about her. Well, they should have tried to avoid her laughing as much if they wanted us to care. That'd be my recommendation to the director. Are you done, Tim? Are we wrapping up?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to say.
All right, okay, that's fine. We can rate the movie, and we can do that. I should mention though, the movie ends with Vincent Price getting thrown into or falling into the vat of wax himself.
Sure.
So he's basically the scene from the '89 Batman with the Joker. He just goes into the wax and he's on his own. So delightful. Delightful stuff. But no, he's very good in it. I like him a lot. So Tim, what are you rating House of Wax 3D out of 10?
Yeah, again, it's pretty good. It's but yeah, it's not perfect. It's not my favorite like classic horror movie, but yeah, it's still a pretty good watch. So I'm gonna give it a decent score. I think I'll go 7.5. It's it's fun. There's definitely a lot there to like.
For the record, everyone, that was the same score you give to Leprechaun 2. I just want to point that out for everyone at home who's keeping track of these things, just in case it's important in the future.
I think they're very comparable movies, honestly.
Now, I am going to... I mean, you're in the right range. I'm tempted to go with a straight 8 and give it the 8 out of 10. I find it quite enjoyable, and it's got a lot of memorable moments, and yeah, it's a delightful watch. So I'll give it the 8. I'll give it the 8 out of 10. So that is House of Wax, everyone, on Streams After Minute. It was a voted for episode, and you can vote as well on the new vote that's up on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month. You get a bonus episode every month for that $1. It's exclusive to our patrons. The $5 tier, though, you get to vote, much like the people who voted for this episode did, and you get to vote. So go check that out. You can, of course, also support us by liking, subscribing, commenting, letting us know what you thought of the movie, sharing us out on your Twitters or social medias, giving us a good review on your iTunes or whatever podcast app you're using. One of those 5-star ratings would be lovely. It helps people find us. Other horror fans out there, other horror ghouls that want to come and be ghoulish by our side, they can do that. So do that. Get us on Twitter at ScreamsMidnight for twittering nonsense and random thoughts and feelings, and Tim being weird and me trying to counteract Tim being weird. You can do that. Otherwise, though, that is us. Any final thoughts, Tim, you want to say about anything?
I don't know. I feel like I don't know enough about wax. Maybe it might be something I'll look up after this episode.
I think from when we do the remake, Tim should get a wax like live during the show.
Okay.
Do you have a hairy chest, Tim?
A little bit, not overly hairy.
Sure. What about legs? You got hairy legs?
Yeah, the legs are pretty
hairy. All right, so what we need to do is do you have the strip on your leg? Have your leg up and a bit of a hoisted up, and you can rip off the wax strip on the show.
I mean, Hey, if people are willing to pay for it, I'm not above doing like stupid stuff for money.
Oh, then you tier on Patreon. But that has been us. That has been House of Wax. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.